In the Western Pacific, Taiwan stands at the center of a growing storm, caught between its democratic identity and China's determination to reclaim it. Just over 100 miles from the mainland, Taiwan faces near-daily military pressure. Chinese warships and fighter jets cross boundaries once respected, turning tension into the new normal. Beijing's message is clear. Reunification is inevitable and force remains an option. For Taiwan, this is a fight for survival and democracy. For China, a matter of national pride and unfinished history. The world watches, knowing that any spark here could ignite a conflict with global consequences. The fragile peace is under strain, and the stakes have never been higher. Unshaken. The Taiwan Strait crisis is a global issue, a clash between democracy and authoritarianism. The US maintains strategic ambiguity, supplying Taiwan with defensive arms while warning of China's growing threat. Taiwan's dominance in semiconductor manufacturing means any conflict would cripple the world's tech supply chain, risking a global recession. The crisis tests the post-1-2 order, challenging the principle that disputes should be settled peacefully. If China succeeds by force, it could embolden aggression worldwide. Taiwan's fate is tied to the future of global security and the balance of power. The Taiwan Strait has become a stage for China's military might warships and fighter jets, now routinely cross lines once respected. These incursions force Taiwan's military to respond constantly, draining resources and morale. China's strategy is attrition wear down Taiwan's defenses, erode public will, and normalize intimidation. The psychological toll is immense, as daily alerts and drills become part of life. By erasing the median line, Beijing raises the risk of miscalculation and accidental conflict. The shadow of the dragon grows longer and the margin for error shrinks. Taiwan's armed forces are on perpetual alert, intercepting Chinese jets and activating missile defenses with every incursion. This constant readiness strains both equipment and personnel, demanding careful resource management. Training and drills have intensified, focusing on realistic invasion scenarios and coordination across all branches. Taiwan's strategy is asymmetric mobile missile boats, hidden launchers, and homegrown anti-ship weapons turn the island into a fortress. The goal is clear: make any attack too costly for China to contemplate. In this high-stakes standoff, every day is a test of endurance and resolve. Despite the threat, daily life in Taiwan continues. Markets bustle and culture thrives. But the shadow of conflict is ever present. Civilian defense courses and public awareness campaigns empower citizens to prepare for crisis, fostering resilience. The government extends military service and reforms reserves, building a society ready to withstand attack and sustain defense. This whole-of-society approach strengthens national identity and determination, especially among the youth. Calm and pragmatism prevail. Preparation replaces panic. For Taiwan, defense is not just military, it's a collective commitment to freedom and survival. As tensions simmer across the Taiwan Strait, the United States watches with intense focus. Washington's role is pivotal, acting as a counterweight to Beijing's ambitions. For decades, the US has been Taiwan's most important backer and primary supplier of defensive arms, putting the US in the middle of the dispute. As China's military pressure has intensified, warnings from American leaders have grown more direct. They publicly state that the threat of a Chinese invasion is real and growing, sounding a clear alarm. US military planners are analyzing the PLA's rapid modernization and bold actions around Taiwan. These warnings signal to Beijing that any aggression would carry grave consequences and rally support for a more robust posture. A potential conflict over Taiwan could materialize within this decade. The scale and potential ferocity of a war over Taiwan would be unlike anything the world has seen in generations. This has spurred a renewed focus on America's military readiness in the Western Pacific. The United States' approach to Taiwan involves a delicate policy known as strategic ambiguity. This intentionally unclear policy acknowledges Beijing's one China principle, but doesn't endorse it. It deliberately leaves vague whether the US would defend Taiwan militarily. This aims to discourage Taiwan's independence and deter China's attack. With China's growing military power, many question if ambiguity remains effective. Some argue for strategic clarity, an explicit commitment to defend Taiwan. Even President Biden has appeared to step away from ambiguity, but his staff has walked back the comments. The policy remains in place, tested like never before, as China gauges US intent. The effectiveness of this policy is a critical question for peace in the region. Beyond words, the United States provides Taiwan tangible support, including advanced military hardware. Under the Taiwan Relations Act, Washington is obligated to provide Taiwan sufficient self-defense. Recent arms sales bolster Taiwan's asymmetric defense strategy, making the island a harder target. Focus is on systems giving Taiwan the best chance to repel an invasion, like mobile anti-ship missiles. These weapons are designed to turn the Taiwan Strait into a highly lethal environment. The strategy is to deny China control of the air and sea. United States Navy warships conduct freedom of navigation operations, reinforcing the strait as an international waterway. These actions send a powerful message that the United States is serious about upholding peace. The United States' strategy of arming Taiwan and increasing its military presence in the region is a delicate balancing act. Every action to support Taiwan is viewed by Beijing as a provocation and a violation of its One China principle. When the United States announces a new arms sale to Taiwan, China invariably responds with condemnation and often large-scale military drills around the island, creating a dangerous cycle. This dynamic places United States policymakers on a strategic tightrope. They must provide enough support to Taiwan to ensure its defense is credible without crossing what Beijing might consider a red line. The risks of miscalculation are enormous. A simple mistake could rapidly escalate. Ultimately, the American reaction is an attempt to manage an increasingly unstable situation. The goal is to maintain the status quo and avoid conflict. Walking this tightrope becomes more difficult every day. Facing threats from China, Taiwan's leaders like President Tsai Ing-wen are responding with a clear voice. They publicly label China as hostile, reflecting the reality of constant military incursions and economic pressure. This stance marks a shift from cautious language aiming to galvanize domestic unity by highlighting the contrast between Taiwan's democracy and China's authoritarianism. This is a call to action, urging international support to resist Chinese aggression. Taiwan seeks to ensure the world doesn't look away as the crisis gathers. Words of defiance are being backed by concrete action. Taiwan's military is undergoing a fundamental transformation, fully embracing what analysts call the porcupine strategy. The concept is simple and intuitive. Make yourself so difficult and painful to attack that any potential predator would rather leave you alone. Given the massive disparity in size between China's and Taiwan's militaries, this is not just a clever strategy, it is a necessary one for survival. Taiwan knows it cannot win a traditional head-on war against the People's Liberation Army. So its goal is not to defeat China, but to deny Beijing a quick and easy victory, making the cost of an invasion unacceptably high. This strategy means a major shift in military procurement and training. The focus is moving away from expensive, conventional platforms like large warships and tanks, which are vulnerable targets in a conflict with a superior power. Instead, Taiwan is boosting its defenses by investing heavily in smaller, cheaper, and more mobile weapons. These are asymmetric systems designed to inflict maximum damage on an invading force. This includes advanced sea mines to make the Taiwan Strait treacherous for naval vessels, and fast-attack missile boats that can hide along the coast and launch surprise attacks. A key pillar of this strategy is building a formidable arsenal of anti-air and anti-ship missiles. Taiwan is both purchasing these systems from the United States and ramping up its own domestic production. The goal is to create overlapping layers of defense that can target Chinese ships and aircraft long before they reach Taiwan's shores. Furthermore, they are acquiring thousands of portable, shoulder-fired missiles, like the American-made Stinger and Javelin. These weapons can be distributed among small, mobile units, enabling them to take down enemy helicopters, jets, and armored vehicles, turning cities and jungles into deadly traps for an occupying force. This defensive buildup is about more than just hardware. It also involves a change in military doctrine and a renewed focus on realism in training. Taiwanese forces are now drilling for the worst-case scenarios, practicing guerrilla warfare tactics and dispersed operations. The objective is to ensure that even if China establishes a beachhead, the fight would be far from over. It would become a bloody, protracted war of attrition. The porcupine strategy is a whole-of-nation approach to deterrence. It sends a clear signal to Beijing. An attempt to conquer Taiwan will come at a staggering cost in both blood and treasure. Taiwan's leaders know that a strong defense requires more than just a professional army. It requires the support and participation of the entire society. In response to the escalating threat, there is a growing movement to put the entire nation on a state of alert. This involves strengthening the connection between the military and the civilian population, and fostering a sense of shared responsibility for the island's defense. One of the most significant steps has been the decision to extend the period of mandatory military service for all eligible men from 4 months to a full year, ensuring future generations of soldiers receive more thorough and rigorous training. This effort extends to overhauling the military reserve system. For years, the reservist program was criticized as being inadequate, with training that was often seen as a formality. Now, the government is implementing reforms to make it more robust and realistic. Reservists are being called up for more intensive and combat-oriented training sessions, designed to better integrate them with active duty units. The goal is to create a credible reserve force that can be rapidly mobilized in a crisis to defend key infrastructure, resist an invasion, and sustain the fight, dramatically increasing the total number of defenders available to protect the island. Beyond formal military structures, there is a burgeoning civil defense movement taking root across Taiwan. Ordinary citizens, from students to office workers to retirees, are voluntarily signing up for workshops on emergency preparedness. They are learning vital skills like urban survival, trauma first aid, and how to operate radios if communication networks go down. These grassroots initiatives, run by independent organizations, reflect a powerful bottom-up desire among the Taiwanese people to be prepared and to contribute to their own security. It shows a society that is not passively waiting for a crisis, but actively getting ready for one. This whole-of-society approach is a critical component of Taiwan's defensive posture. It sends a powerful message that the will to resist is widespread and deeply felt. The government's policies and the people's actions are becoming increasingly aligned, creating a more resilient and prepared nation. From the formal decision to boost defense budgets and extend conscription, to the informal trend of civilians learning first aid, Taiwan is a nation on alert. It is a society that cherishes its freedom and is actively working at every level to build the strength and resolve necessary to defend it against any threat. China has engaged in a rapid military expansion. Official defense spending has seen double-digit increases, transforming the People's Liberation Army into a high-tech military. This investment dwarfs nearly every other country, challenging the regional military balance. The PLA Navy is launching new warships, including destroyers and aircraft carriers. The Air Force is fielding stealth fighters and long-range bombers. The Rocket Force controls a growing arsenal of missiles designed to target aircraft carriers and military bases. Analysts believe official budget numbers don't tell the full story. China excludes expenses, such as space programs and paramilitary forces. This reflects a desire to project power and achieve political objectives, including the unification of Taiwan, through force if necessary. The increase in defense spending drives military activities around Taiwan, turning threats into a growing danger. China's military spending reveals a strategic evolution. The PLA was primarily a green water navy, designed to operate in coastal waters. Recent investment has been directed toward building a modern blue water navy, with the capacity to sustain operations far out into the Pacific and Indian Oceans. This includes aircraft carrier battle groups. This shift is about power projection, enabling China to challenge U.S. naval dominance and enforce its claims across the region. The ability to deploy fleets far from the mainland is crucial for any potential invasion scenario, like Taiwan. The same strategic logic applies to the modernization of the PLA Air Force, allowing Chinese air power to operate well beyond the first island chain. China can threaten not only Taiwan itself, but also the U.S. bases in places like Guam. The increased defense spending funds the creation of a blue water navy and a long-range air force. These new capabilities enable the more aggressive military drills we are now seeing. China's spending patterns and its military activities are pointing toward a force being built and trained for one primary mission: taking Taiwan. China's defense spending and military modernization are part of a calculated campaign of coercion aimed at Taiwan. Every new warship and fighter jet adds to Beijing's toolbox, intensifying gray zone tactics. the PLA operates more aggressively around Taiwan, slowly changing the status quo. This aims to demoralize Taiwan, fostering a belief that resistance is futile. China is gathering intelligence, observing Taiwan's and the U.S. responses. China's military investment is the foundation of its Taiwan strategy, giving credibility to its threats. This pattern is the outcome of decades preparing for a confrontation it seems increasingly willing to risk. To understand today's friction, we need to look back at the delicate dance between Washington, Beijing, and Taipei. For decades, U.S. policy maintained a fragile peace through the One China policy and strategic ambiguity. This allowed the U.S. to recognize Beijing while maintaining unofficial relations with Taiwan, preventing either side from changing the status quo. Over the last decade, this policy shifted due to a growing consensus that China had become a strategic competitor. Recognizing Taiwan's democratic transformation, the U.S. began strengthening ties, especially given the threat from China. This shift, accelerated during the Trump administration, led to a more supportive relationship with Taiwan, setting the stage for today's tensions. Donald Trump's presidency marked a departure from established United States-Taiwan policy. Viewing China as a rival, the administration quickly signaled a shift. President-elect Trump accepted a call from Taiwan's President Tsai Ing-wen, the first contact since 1979. This angered Beijing, signaling old rules no longer applied. High-level U.S. official visits to Taiwan, avoided for decades, began. A record number of arms sales followed, enhancing Taiwan's defense capabilities. This strategy aimed to compete with China, openly bolstering Taiwan. China viewed these actions as provocation, escalating military pressure. PLA operations around Taiwan increased sharply, triggering a cycle of action and reaction. This confrontational dynamic created a new baseline of tension that persists today. The Biden administration has largely continued the policies set in motion during the Trump administration. The strategic shift toward a more robust relationship with Taiwan remains. Washington's consensus is that China is the primary long-term challenge. China interprets this as an effort to encourage Taiwanese independence. This fuels Beijing's narrative and justifies its military activities. The legacy is a more volatile environment. Old guardrails have eroded, the risk of accidental conflict has grown. This shift has reshaped the strategic landscape. It has contributed to escalating tensions. The stakes are higher than ever. We have walked through a timeline of escalating tension between a rising superpower and a defiant democracy. China's relentless military pressure, daily incursions, and large-scale drills are designed to intimidate. This is the new reality for Taiwan, a constant state of alert. In response, we have witnessed the resolute reaction from both Taiwan and the United States. Taiwan is boosting its own defenses. The United States has shed its decades-old posture for a more open and robust backing of Taiwan. This complex interplay has created one of the most dangerous geopolitical flashpoints on the planet. The stakes extend far beyond the shores of Taiwan. A conflict would trigger a global economic catastrophe. The world watches because what happens in the Taiwan Strait will not stay in the Taiwan Strait, leaving the entire world on edge. So what could happen next? If tensions continue, the future looks grim. One path is intensified gray zone tactics, including more frequent military exercises, simulated blockades, or missile tests. The goal, to exhaust Taiwan and force capitulation. This tests Taiwan's resolve and international patience. A more terrifying possibility is Beijing acting decisively, from seizing islands to a full-scale invasion. Such a gamble could trigger war with Taiwan, and potentially the US and its allies. The human and economic cost would be immense. De-escalation requires monumental effort, open communication, and Beijing dialing back military coercion. The future hinges on choices made in Beijing, Taipei, and Washington. The risk of conflict is real and growing. The world watches.